Hey, Omega.
Yes, Gunner.
So this week, I actually had some time and I watched Monday Night Raw.
You don't say.
Yes, and I actually got on our Twitter and I started talking to people.
Why now would you do a thing like that?
Well, so that we could have new friends, and new friends are joining us this week on the podcast. So, hey everybody, welcome to Real Good Serious number 80. I'm Gunner, that's Omega.
You know I don't like change.
I know, you tip everybody at Starbucks. I understand that much. Joining us this week, our technical producer, Mr. Yankum DDS. As you can tell, he is a great technical producer because he produces no sound.
I said hello.
I just got static on my end.
Yes, we just got static as well. Joining us this week also is the wonderful Jester, Net Jester. Hey. Okay, so apparently our technical issues don't just spread out.
Sorry about that. So, in the immortal words of the X-Men, hello new people, and we hope you survive the experience.
Yes, and joining us this week from Wrestling RPG, we have Pete.
Hello, everyone.
And from RationalWrestlingReview.com, we have Alice.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Congratulations, Alice. You are the first woman on our show.
That seems to be the case pretty much everywhere I go.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure right there.
No, that was for another thing that we did.
Yeah, in 80 episodes, that's a grand bookmark right there. We need to do better!
We do. And speaking of doing better, we're going to get into the news. This week, TMZ reported that CM Punk obtained a restraining order against his mother this week after he claimed she consistently hits him up for money and threatens to kill herself and release potentially embarrassing information about his past. Punk claims that she suffers from bipolar disorder, and he gives her more than $100,000. He's given her more than $100,000. In other Punk news, there is already talk of having him win the Royal Rumble next year and close out WrestleMania in the WWE title match. Yes, yes, yes.
Now, I don't know too much about Punk's past. Obviously, that's his cross to bear, but I do know a little bit about his future. And why wouldn't you have him close out the WWE title match? Seems like the perfect candidate.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me that we would, that he would win the Royal Rumble. I mean, that's one of the things that he hasn't done yet, and at this point in his career, at the status that he's reached, that he should have.
It seems like it makes a hell of a lot of sense. I know that he doesn't have he's got precious little time left in terms of, I guess, the timeline that he set up for himself. So why not sort of get it all out of the way? I think I'd like to see Bryan in the same position in about a year's time, if possible.
Absolutely, I concur.
I personally would like to see Bryan and Punk close out WrestleMania in that match.
That'd be a hoot, but it seems more likely that doesn't it have to be Undertaker again? No, he doesn't necessarily have to close out the show, but he will be back, I suppose. And I imagine
you were going to say Cena.
Oh God, no. Let's hope not. But I guess we will get into a little bit of possibly Undertaker later when we discuss Sting.
Indeed. Can I just say, I think the show is going very smoothly, very soothing. You have a very soothing voice. It's like I'm on PBS.
I've been told that my show is like the PBS of wrestling. It's definitely a different approach.
And not just because, nobody watches our show either.
So.
No one does watch our show because we're a podcast and we're listened to.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't even going to point
came out of
that
nowhere.
but yeah.
I knew there was a logical explanation for this somehow! It just went over my head!
People aren't mean on PBS either.
So, hold on. So do you think that's it for CM Punk? That's his as high as he's going to go, closing at WrestleMania?
It seems like that's about. I mean, in terms of the things that one can achieve, that's about as good as it can get. And if he really wants to quit by the time he's 35,
is Austin as high as he can get?
Where's Austin at this point? Because I know he's said over and over again, and it's so hard to know when a guy's kayfabing you about this, but that, you know, he's not coming back, and things are actually a lot worse with him physically than he claims. It's so hard to know. I would like to leave myself happily surprised.
He's addicted to television.
Imagine that Steve Austin wants to do it.
I'd think so.
Yeah.
I think he's been waiting for the perfect person to do it, and I think it's Punk, like the whole straight edge and beer thing. Yep. Like it's like perfect.
If all those cards fall in a row, then I think both guys are willing to do it.
And I guess that's the other thing, is can the schedules match up? And I guess when you look at what Austin's doing, he doesn't have huge, heavy commitments on his shoulders, so he definitely has the time and the space to do something like that if he wants to. And obviously, Punk's already worked with Taker, so there aren't too many other places to go.
Are you kidding me? I mean, Redneck Island is just a huge commitment.
Oh, goodness gracious! And as much as I think and as much as I think a lot of us would like to see Punk Bryan headlining WrestleMania, that's probably not what Vince or Triple H would like to see. And I think maybe a majority of your average fans, not us, not people like us, not the people that bother to make podcasts, might not necessarily want to see it, but they definitely want to see Austin back.
Apparently Vince is high on Bryan, though.
Oh, I believe that, but I think if he was given the choice of you can have Punk Austin or Punk Bryan, I don't think he's going to go for the awesome.
I think he would go for Punk Austin. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Like, you can have a fine technical match, or you can have something that's going to sell just crazy amounts of tickets. It's like, well, technical matches are nice, but
Exactly. I expect to see the next couple WrestleManias to be like this. If Austin is ready this year, it'll be Punk and Austin. If he isn't ready, it's going to be Punk and Bryan, and they're going to close out WrestleMania. And Dave Sapolsky somewhere will be crying in a corner, tears of joy. Next. WWE head writer David Kreitzman was talked into staying until mid-August in order to train his eventual replacement and to keep things stable as WWE heads into SummerSlam. Stephanie McMahon's role has been minimized in creative as she's only involved when needed. NXT's writer Ryan Ward is now the lead writer on SmackDown. Last week's Raw script had next to no changes and the first time in weeks. Apparently the Mark Henry retirement angle was scripted more simply and credit was being given to Henry for taking it in the direction he did. Meanwhile, NXT creative assistant Rob Naylor has left the company for the time being, apparently unable to make the move to the new developmental center as he is a family man. Many superstars tweeted their thanks to Naylor, including Triple H himself. So lots of shakeups on the creative end of things. From what I was reading, it seems like they're very unhappy with it. I mean, obviously they're unhappy with the ratings, as we're going to get into there, but these shuffles are very interesting.
I don't think this surprises me at all, given, I've had the good fortune of being able to talk to Court Bauer. I'm sure we all listened to him on MLW. As a former writer, she just fucked up there. I don't know about language on the show. I'm so sorry. I hope that isn't a problem.
We fucking swear all the fucking time. Not a big fucking
fantastic.
deal.
Thank you, Paulie Dangerous. All these ads really relief just knowing that. There's a weight off of my shoulders now.
Basically, he's described as a very toxic work environment, and you are in constant fear of losing your job, which is not a healthy place to be creative. And after all, it is creative, right? It seems like a really unhappy place to work, and I'm surprised that writers last as long as they do, especially given where they're pulling them from. They're pulling them from my neck of the woods. They're pulling them out of Los Angeles, and I think this is a really interesting experiment that they've been trying for the last X amount of years, pulling in actual writers rather than bookers. I think long term, it's creating an entirely different kind of product, and what we're watching is more of an entertainment variety show rather than a wrestling show, and I'm not necessarily against that. I think there's actually a lot of interest and value to it. There's a reason I'm still watching, but it's definitely an evolution. I'd actually be curious to hear what you guys think about that.
Well, you know, these bastards in creative and their hellion damn-ass bosses. You know, it's not exactly a bitchin' job. Put it that way.
Oh, you're just pulling it out, aren't you, Fearless Leader? I would say that writing compared to booking are two entirely different things, and maybe the professional wrestling audience isn't really used to booking, or writing, since we've had booking on for years and years and years. Like you said, Alice, it's definitely a evolution. I'm just not sure if, it's an interesting trip, but it's going to be a long, strange trip, and it's definitely going to have a lot of potholes in the road.
I think that's definitely true, and I think there is at least a small measure of explanation for Stephanie McMahon's role being minimized in creative. She's pregnant again. It seems to be fairly obvious if you look at her. I'm convinced that
just can't get enough.
I think they're trying to go for the son.
We got to get that future world champion.
Yeah, so I think it's likely that she'll probably reduce her time for a while and go off and become a mommy again. So.
All right, well, for time's sake...
That's kind of sad, actually. I know one Stephanie around, don't we? On TV, at least.
I don't know, man.
No? I quite like Stephanie.
I think any time... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the whole McMahon thing, it's been about the same for about a month now, where they just kind of show up and bash on Vicky, and that's starting to get boring.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, for the future, like I recently, Stephanie's interaction with the Divas, I found quite interesting. Like, I'm not sure what Brooke Hogan is doing on TNA. I think she was like leading them or something like that, as far as I know. Maybe Stephanie could do something similar to that.
Basically doing what Karen Angle did back in 2011 and led the Divas division, if you will. It was like head booker for them or whatever. As to get back to Alice's point here, let's see. Basically, what I wanted to say is, the better shows are booked, and but the better storylines are written. You write bigger storylines, but you book week to week, in my opinion. There was like a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago or something. There was a Raw. It was really good. It was really, really good, and everybody loved it. And it felt like a Raw after WrestleMania. That show was rewritten 3 times, and they booked it on the fly, essentially. So that should be, exactly what we should, that's exactly what they should be doing. And I feel that even though that writing style is very hectic and it's very time-consuming, it works so much better for the product because it makes a hot product, because it is kind of, a clusterfuck, if you will. But at the same time, compared to this week, I was yawning. I mean, if no script changes, I tend to find that it looks like 2011, and I'm yawning.
Yeah, it seems they're taking away the live TV thing, the live TV gimmick. They're trying to make it a live soap opera. Like it may as well be taped.
Somebody on the boards made the analogy. If you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, it'll jump right out. But if you put a frog in a pot of cold water, it will sit there until the water gets hotter and hotter until eventually it dies. So basically, that there's no sense of urgency until, unless it's right there in their face. Like, if there's a huge drop in ratings, then yeah, we got to do something now. But week to week, ratings dip a little bit, then there's no sense of urgency, it seems.
I think if we're getting back to Stephanie McMahon and generally the McMahons and Triple H on television, it's a sign of desperation. I think that's when they pull them out. That was certainly when they brought Vince back last year and he had that match with Punk. The ratings were in the toilet. So they had to do something, and for them it's let's bring out Vince, let's bring out the old warhorse, and I think it's if it's not a good sign, and I would imagine that they brought the McMahons and Triple H back at that period of time when Punk away, and they needed something. And they kind of filled a void, but I feel like at this point, especially this week, they're totally superfluous. I don't see the point of them right now. I don't see where it's going, nor do I care. I imagine the threat is they're either going to pull, I guess, Team Bricky apart. I can't imagine that people are particularly interested in that. Or, the thing happens that always happens in the situation. Will the McMahons and Triple H be united in power? Well, yeah, they've done that before. I'm not overjoyed or overwhelmed. That's my feeling about that.
Vicky is a great way to describe them, because their acting is like bricks, and while Beef Wellington is a fabulous talker and a snazzy dresser, I don't think he's worth much more than that. To be completely honest. Well, and they gave him a legit job with the .com site. He's something in charge of digital media, so he's actually they gave him a shoot job, so they must really like him, would be my assumption.
Oh, I thought Team Bricky's one of the funniest things on Raw. At least one of the funniest things since they got rid of Matt Stryker during WWE Active. Now it's just boring old... Who does WWE Active now? Josh Matthews.
How terrible it is.
Oh, yes. I will give props to the funniness that was Team Matt Stryker and Team... Vicky and Brad. Yeah, Brad. The Brad and Stryker show, that was just... Anyway, this is why I don't talk much, because I tend to babble.
Brad Maddox is actually really, really funny. If you look at him in the way that... And I think Mr. Wrestling RPG, Pete will be able to get behind this. He's rather like Father Dougal McGuire on Father Ted. If you imagine him as being somebody who was just like...
Yes, I can still see that, actually.
Yeah, dropped to earth, like hatched out of an egg, or from like some alien planet who has no idea what's going on around him, and he just sort of acts within this totally confusing environment. He works. That's when he was on SmackDown doing commentary, hysterical. Laughed my ass off. When he was talking about like submarines and shit, it's like, what on earth are you talking about? It was mental. He was like a performance artist.
Exactly. I know I'm really dating myself by saying this, but he's freaking Mork from Ork. He's Robin Williams. He's Nanu Shazbot. That's funny.
Pretty much. He's a guy that has no idea what's happening around him, how wrestling works, but for some reason he's been put in this role, and hey, let's go with it. Why not? And he, to me, has given... almost a vulnerability to Vicky that I hadn't seen before, and has made me like her. So that's an achievement in and of itself.
She hasn't done anything really heelish in a long time. She's kind of, like I said, she keeps getting dumped on by the McMahons, and she hasn't really,
I think that's them trying to get rid of the general manager thing. I don't think it really needs to be there anymore, to be honest.
Basically, they want...
She's still a huge heat magnet, though.
Yeah, she could be a manager instead. I think she's way better as a manager, to be honest.
She will be better as a manager. Alright, I'm going to move on here. Daniel Bryan is the challenger for John Cena in the WWE title at SummerSlam. With the Total Divas airing at that point, there's talk of incorporating the Bella Twins into the storyline, as Brie is dating Bryan and Nikki is dating Cena. WWE announced that Bryan and Randy Orton were fined for using their chair shots to the head during their match last Monday night, which were legitimate, though for the top rope spot where Orton tried to pull the chair shot, but still struck Bryan in the head. WWE also announced that Tyson Kidd and Natalya were married as a part of the show, even though they were actually married months ago, but the wedding was scripted for the program.
Okay, the Bellas and Bryant and Cena, we're going to drive over this cliff 100 miles an hour. The tank's going to explode. We're going to fireball into a blaze of glory until we hit the water or the bottom of the canyon.
I think it's highly unfortunate. That's really all I have to say about this. Anything involving the Bellas, the Divas, this Total Divas program, yes, I'm going to watch it, but it's only because I want to have something to bitch about on my show. And, mazel tov to Tyson Kidd and Natalya.
Now, I've said before on this program that I'm fully willing, during the premiere of Total Divas, to instead watch a 60-minute loop of Triple H humping the Katie Vick mannequin. full commentary on it the entire time.
You're going to give me nightmares!
This is where you're all just kind of going to stare at me, if you could. I actually like the idea of this Total Divas thing. It appeals to mainstream stuff, I guess. Like girls like girly things, they're all going to be talking about dresses and fashion and whatnot, and that'll attract an audience to that, which may attract an audience to WWE. I don't see a problem with it, to be honest.
It appeals to the wrong kind of mainstream, the kind of mainstream that watches these trashy...
Does that matter? It's still viewers, and that's what they care about.
Well, if it's significant enough. The problem I have with it is this very thing, the spillover to the actual wrestling. I mean, for one thing, the Bellas are both heels. And you have Bryan and Cena, who Cena's a face, and Bryan's kind of in the between right now, but he's moving toward face. So they have to explain that whole thing. Plus, they run the huge risk of basically admitting on television that John Cena is not single, which, to me, seems like a huge bit of appeal for a lot of the female audience. You know,
He was married for several years, though.
Yeah, but you know, it's kind of like...
People know that Kanye West is married to Kim Kardashian, and girls don't seem to care, you know what I mean? It's not...
Yeah, but...
I don't
The
think
superstar.
they ever really acknowledged that Cena was married.
Yeah.
She turned up in the she turned up in the crowds occasionally. They've used her, you know, the divorce and storylines. They've definitely mentioned her.
Oh, God. Letters from the sky. I'm having flashbacks.
Well, you know, it's kind of like, you know, sometimes celebrities, pop stars, don't make a big deal of the fact that they're married or otherwise involved because, you know, just because. But I think if they actually have it part of the storyline where they are dating and then this reality show, which of course is supposed to be reality, where they are, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't seem... It seems like they really want to do this Total Divas thing and really want to appeal to the quote-unquote mainstream.
It's a push for the Divas division, I think.
But
It's the wrong kind of push for the Divas division, though. It's like,
Yeah.
let's take everything that is wrestling out of being a diva and
yeah,
make it
well,
a
look
new...
who's actually on the show. You've got the Bellas, who, you know, are Oscar-worthy, as we all know. You've got these two new girls, JoJo and red hair.
Miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous.
You've got Cameron and Naomi, who, you know, aren't terrible. Well, Cameron, you know. And then you have Natalia, who's supposed to be the token good girl, I guess, who, you know, this whole marriage thing is going to be part of the show. And the point is, the show's supposed to be kind of like, you know, this is divas, you know, we're sexy, beautiful, powerful, etc., etc. But I think they could get that and so much more if they would actually focus on the real divas who can wrestle and all that good stuff.
I think it's we have to wait and see kind of thing, to be honest.
I think they just have I think maybe they just have contractual obligations to these chicks and they don't know what to do with them, so they created a TV show for them.
Oh, that could be it right there. You could have hit the nail right on the head.
Right, and that show was probably supposed to be on the WWE Network. And we know what happened with that.
Oh my god.
That will never ever see the light of day ever in this decade.
Sometimes I just type in the Twitter URL and just look at it for 5 minutes and just have a nice little chuckle to myself. Is a WWE Network Twitter. Hilarious.
Oh, it
Or
was sad.
like WWE not work.
Oh my god.
Yes. Speaking of people that aren't working, Shawn Michaels recently revealed during an interview with the Ministry of Slam podcast, great podcast by the way, I love those guys, that he had a conversation with Vince McMahon, who doesn't see money, and an anonymous WWE superstar. Michaels recalled telling McMahon that he had the same thing about him years ago. The rumored to be Daniel Bryan, Michaels took to Twitter to deny the claim, saying the person is actually 6'3" and 250 pounds. Who is 6'3" and 250 pounds?
Ryback?
Stephanie.
Everyone?
He said that it was a guess on Twitter, though, like an estimate. He just kind of looked at him. It's not precise or something like that.
Ryback is much larger than 250 pounds.
Curtis Axel is 6'3", according to his official WWE billing.
And he's mediocre as all get
That
out.
would make sense because he's someone that Paul Heyman wants to push, possibly.
Potentially, but I think that it actually might be somebody who's actually on top at this point and not necessarily, you know, rising up.
I thought that Curtis Axel was a Triple H project.
Yes, he is. Yeah. And that's why he wrestled The Rock and prepped The Rock for his match with Cena.
Yeah, but true to this storyline, maybe Vince doesn't agree with his son-in-law.
But if he doesn't see money, does that not mean that this person has potential and is not on top? I know what that means.
It could be, or there's the third option, and my theory is that it's all bullshit, and it's just to get people talking.
Probably. We're going to fire through some of these because we're running out of time. TNA has hired former longtime WWE producer of Tough Enough fame, John Big Brooke, as the executive vice president of TV production. Meanwhile, The Observer reports that TNA cut way back on flying people in for tapings. There are a lot of signs that point to officials worrying even more about money these days, with what the cost of tapings on the road and no new revenue streams or improvement in the existing streams. TNA on financial straits?
TNA will survive.
That's my official...
This is news.
Yeah, that we've always said. TNA will survive as long as they have the money to, but as soon as they don't have the money to, then, it might be delayed so to speak.
They're all good.
I think TNA needs to exist, but it's a really, really upsetting show. Oh, there you go.
It's like... it's really like going to, and I hate to compare this to Alzheimer's, but really it's like going to your grandparent when they have Alzheimer's and trying to watch it and trying to understand what's going on. And on some vague level you do, but at the same time, it's like, it's not the same as it used to be.
I think of TNA as being kind of a value brand WWE. Like if you go to if you go to a Tesco or whatever, and they have sort of the Tesco Finest, and then they've got the value brand.
Yeah,
their value brand. In the States, we used to have black and white packaged products in grocery stores. That's pretty much what TNA is to me. Whenever I see James Storm, I think, oh, it's store brand Steve Austin. Neat. And
they're the generic alternative. I love that.
and it's like, oh, he's that guy that kind of looks like Cena. Sure. Oh, it's like, wanting a Superman costume for Halloween and getting a super guy costume for Halloween. It's like, then your mom says, it's just the same. It's like, no, it's not the same, Mom. I'm going to be super guy. Everyone's going to laugh at me. So if I watch TNA, I think people are laughing at me.
You don't know the difference between the X-Files and the X-Men.
Speaking of things that we laugh at while watching TNA, there are rumors that Taz may return to the WWE after tweeting about big wrestling shows going on in Brooklyn near his, quote, hometown of Red Hook. Raw tapes in the new Barclays Center the night after Money in the Bank, and Taz's TNA contract will expire sometime in the next 2 weeks. Dun dun dun. WWE has apparently decided against signing ROH star Adam Cole and won't be signing Mike Bennett for the time being. And the Observer reports that the WWE is confident that Sting will join their roster at some point in the future, which is why he'll be included in the Raw Championship retrospective. Sting has sent feelers out into the company again, and his TNA contract is up within the year. We'll talk about Sting in the 15-minute time limit next segment. However, I'd like to focus on Taz for a second here. Do you think that Taz coming back to the WWE is a good thing, and would he either be A, a color commentator, or B, sent down to the NXT school to merge his finishing school with NXT?
I think it's the latter. I could see him definitely going to NXT and maybe doing a web show.
I think it would be just an announcer deal, kind of like what they had at JBL.
I hope not, because he's not really good at it.
Who announces on SmackDown? I don't watch SmackDown.
Matthews and Cole.
Well, he's better than those guys.
Yeah, right. He could be on SmackDown.
He's horrendous on TNA. I mean, he's as bad. He's Jerry Lawler bad now.
I think he doesn't care.
Yes, that's the problem. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a break right here, and when we come back, we'll have a little more of the news, and we will have the 15-minute time limit. Stay tuned. SmartSnark.com.